Before you watch another second of this video, understand something. This moment is not neutral. The fact that you are here watching, listening, paying attention, already changes what comes next. At the deepest level of reality, nothing exists in a fixed state until it is observed. And right now, you are the observer. Quantum physics doesn't describe a cold, mechanical universe. It reveals a reality that responds, a reality that shifts when it is noticed. Which means this isn't just a video about quantum physics. It's about why you are part of the equation. Over the next few minutes, you're going to hear 12 lessons that don't just explain how the universe works. They explain why your attention matters, why change is possible, and why the line between you and reality is thinner than you were ever told. Stay with this until the end, because once you see what quantum physics actually reveals about reality, you won't be able to unsee it. 1. Reality doesn't exist until you observe it. Pause for a moment, not just physically, mentally. Before you notice this sentence, it wasn't part of your reality. That sounds simple, almost obvious. But quantum physics says something far more unsettling. At the smallest level of existence, particles do not have a definite position, speed, or state. They exist as possibilities, not things potential. They are everywhere and nowhere at once. And then something strange happens. The moment they are observed, they choose. Not gradually, not slowly, instantly. Before observation, reality is undecided. After observation, it becomes specific. This is not philosophy. This has been tested, repeated, and confirmed in laboratories around the world. The universe behaves differently when it is being watched. That means observation is not passive. It is an action. And if observation changes particles, what do you think it does to your life? Most people believe reality is fixed, that events simply happen to them, that they are reacting to a world already decided. Quantum physics quietly disagrees. It suggests that reality is more like a question than an answer, more like a draft than a final copy. Your attention is not neutral. It selects. What you focus on gains structure. What you ignore remains undefined. This is why two people can live in the same world and experience completely different realities. They are not observing the same thing. The universe does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you consistently notice. This is where most people miss the point. It's not about positive thinking. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about awareness. When you observe fear constantly, reality organizes around it. When you observe lack, it sharpens. When you observe possibility, it expands. Reality collapses into form around attention. And the most uncomfortable part? You are always observing something, even when you think you aren't. Your thoughts are observations. Your expectations are observations. Your assumptions are observations. They quietly shape what becomes real for you. So the question is no longer whether reality responds to observation. The question is, what are you training reality to become? By the way you watch it? And once you understand that, you can never look at the world the same way again. 2. You are not separate from the universe. From the way we speak, it sounds obvious that you are here, and the universe is out there. Your body, your thoughts, your life, and then everything else. Quantum physics challenges that division at its core. At the smallest level, there are no solid borders, no clean edges, no true things. There are only fields continuous, overlapping, interacting. Particles are not independent objects. They are excitations in the same underlying field, meaning separation is not fundamental. Connection is. Every atom in your body was forged in stars, not metaphorically, literally. The carbon in your cells, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, they were created long before Earth existed. You are not borrowing matter from the universe. You are made of its history. And it doesn't stop there. Quantum experiments reveal something even stranger. Particles that have interacted once can remain linked forever. No matter how far apart they move, a change in one is reflected in the other instantly. not through space, not through time, but through connection. Distance, at the deepest level, loses its meaning. If matter itself doesn't truly separate, why do we believe we are? The feeling of isolation is not a scientific truth. It's a psychological habit. Your body is not sealed off from reality. It is in constant exchange with it, through energy, through information, through influence. Every breath mixes you with the world. Every sensation is the universe touching itself. Even your thoughts are not as private as they feel. They arise from the same physical laws that govern stars, oceans, and galaxies. You are not an outsider observing existence. You are an event happening within it. This changes responsibility. If you are not separate, then what you do does not end with you. Every action is participation. Every choice is contribution. You don't stand apart from the universe, trying to control it. You move with it. You shape it from within. And once that sinks in, something shifts. Loneliness loses its authority. Meaning stops feeling distant. And life becomes less about survival and more about belonging to something that never excluded you in the first place. You were never alone in the universe. You were always part of it, remembering itself through you. 3. Uncertainty is built into reality. We are taught to fear uncertainty, to avoid it, to control it, to replace it with plans, predictions, and guarantees. But quantum physics tells a very different story. At the most fundamental level, the universe refuses certainty. There is a limit to what can be known at once. You can know where a particle is, or how fast it's moving, but never both with perfect accuracy. This is not a flaw in our instruments. It is not a gap in our knowledge. It is a rule written into reality itself. The universe protects uncertainty, and that should make us pause. Because if uncertainty exists at the foundation of everything, then confusion is not a mistake. It is a natural state. Quantum particles do not behave like predictable machines. They behave like probabilities, clouds of potential waiting to take form. Nothing is fully decided in advance. This means the future is not locked. It is open. And openness is exactly what makes change possible. Certainty feels safe, but it is also static. Uncertainty feels uncomfortable, but it is dynamic. It is the space where transformation happens. Every major shift in your life began in uncertainty. Every growth required not knowing what came next. Yet we label these moments as failure, weakness, or loss of control. Quantum physics suggests something else. It suggests that when certainty disappears, possibility increases. The universe does not collapse under uncertainty. It operates because of it. So when you find yourself unsure about your direction, your future, or yourself, you are not out of alignment with reality. You are synchronized with it. Uncertainty is not the enemy of understanding. It is the doorway, and those who learn to stay present inside it, without rushing to escape, often discover outcomes that certainty could never produce. The universe is not asking you to know everything. It is asking you to remain open long enough for something new to emerge. For everything is energy before it is matter. Look at your hand. It feels solid, certain, real, but solidity is an illusion created by scale. When you move closer, far closer, matter stops behaving like something you can hold. Atoms are not tiny hard balls. They are mostly empty space. And inside that space, there is movement, vibration, energy. Particles are not things sitting still. They are events, temporary patterns in energy fields. What you call matter is energy that has learned to repeat itself. This changes how we understand stability. Nothing is truly fixed. Everything is in motion, even when it appears still. Your body is not a static object. It is a process. Cells replace themselves. Atoms pass through. Energy flows in and out without pause. You are not the same physical being you were years ago, or even moments ago. Yet something continues. A pattern, a coherence. Quantum physics shows that form comes after frequency. Energy arranges itself first. Matter follows. which means change does not begin at the surface. It begins at the level of interaction, how systems resonate, interfere, or reinforce one another. This is why tension accumulates before breakdown, why shifts are felt internally before they appear externally. Reality reorganizes from the inside out, and when energy changes, structure eventually obeys. This is not about denying the physical world. It's about understanding its origin. Matter is not the foundation of reality. It is the expression of something deeper. And if that's true, then you are not trapped in form. You are participating in motion. Life is not something happening to a solid object called you. It is something moving through you, constantly reshaping what you think of as real. 5. Time is not what you think it is. We experience time as a straight line, past behind us, future ahead, present slipping away faster than we can hold it. This feels obvious, natural, undeniable, but quantum physics quietly dismantles this picture. At the deepest level of reality, time does not behave like a river flowing forward. In many quantum equations, time doesn't even appear at all. The universe functions perfectly without needing it. That should disturb us, because if time is not fundamental, then what we experience as passing may not be what we think it is. In quantum systems, events don't always happen in a clear order. Cause and effect can blur. Outcomes can influence conditions that appear to come before them. The future, in subtle ways, can reach backward, not through science fiction paradoxes, but through probability. This means the present is not simply shaped by the past. It is negotiated between what has been and what could be. Reality is less like a recording and more like a live calculation. Every moment is an intersection point, where memory, expectation, and possibility overlap. This reframes waiting. If the future already exists as potential, then waiting is not empty time. It is preparation. Moments of stillness are not delays. They are alignment periods. Quantum physics suggests that the future is not fixed and waiting for you to arrive. It is responsive. It shifts based on conditions formed now. Your expectations act like signals sent forward. Your decisions narrow or widen probability paths. This is why two people can start from the same past and arrive at completely different futures. Time didn't change them. Their relationship to possibility did. Notice how time behaves differently depending on awareness. Moments of fear stretch endlessly. Moments of presence disappear instantly. This is not subjective illusion alone. Attention alters temporal experience. When you are fully present, the mind stops measuring time. And without measurement, time loses its grip. Quantum mechanics teaches us that measurement defines outcomes. So, what happens when you stop measuring your life in deadlines, regrets, and countdowns? Time softens, pressure dissolves, possibility increases. The past is not as solid as memory makes it seem. The future is not as distant as fear suggests. Both are flexible. What feels like running out of time is often the mind clinging to a single imagined outcome. But reality does not move toward one future. It branches. Every moment is a choice point, whether conscious or not. You are not being pushed forward by time. You are navigating through probability. And the present moment, this one, is not a thin slice between two infinities. It is the only place where influence exists, not because the past is gone or the future unreal, but because now is where they can still be reshaped. Once you understand that time is not an enemy chasing you, but a medium you move through, urgency gives way to precision, fear gives way to attention, and life stops feeling like something that's slipping away and starts feeling like something that's responding to how deeply you are here. 6. Small changes create massive effects. We are conditioned to believe that only big actions matter. That change must be dramatic, visible, immediate. If something is small, we dismiss it. If it doesn't shake the world, we assume it doesn't count. Quantum physics tells a radically different story. At the smallest scales of reality, tiny fluctuations are not noise. They are decisive. A minuscule shift in energy so small it borders on nothing can determine how an entire system evolves. In quantum systems, outcomes are often decided by the slightest imbalance, a subtle interaction, a nearly invisible difference. And once that difference exists, reality reorganizes around it. This is difficult for the human mind to accept because we are trained to look for causes that match effects. Big result must have come from a big cause, but the universe doesn't work that way. At the quantum level, size does not equal importance. The smallest input can redirect everything that follows. This is how particles choose paths, how reactions begin, how structures form, not through force, but through influence. What appears insignificant at first becomes foundational later. Now consider how this translates to life. A single thought, repeated quietly, becomes belief. A belief becomes expectation. An expectation shapes behavior. Behavior reshapes environment. At no point was there a dramatic moment, just accumulation. Quantum physics shows that systems are sensitive to initial conditions. Once a direction is set even subtly, it amplifies over time. This is why small habits compound, why unnoticed assumptions steer lives, why tiny decisions echo for years. Most people wait for motivation before acting. They wait for clarity, for certainty, for a sign that something big is about to happen. But change does not announce itself that way. It begins as a deviation, a slight refusal to repeat the same pattern, a moment of awareness where there used to be autopilot. In quantum mechanics, probability waves interfere with one another. They overlap, reinforce, cancel, or redirect. Life behaves similarly. Each small choice interferes with the future that would have happened otherwise. You don't need to overpower your past. You only need to stop feeding it in the same way. The universe does not require force to change direction. It requires a different input. This is why attempts at radical overnight transformation often fail. They try to overpower systems instead of influencing them. Quantum systems don't resist change. They respond to it. But they respond proportionally to consistency, not intensity. A massive push, followed by nothing. Change is less than a small adjustment repeated. This reframes patience. Waiting is not passive if the input has changed. Even when results are invisible, systems are reorganizing internally. This is why progress often feels delayed. Reality adjusts beneath the surface before it shows itself. Most people abandon change during this invisible phase. They mistake silence for failure. Quantum physics suggests the opposite. Silence is often reconfiguration. When enough small changes align, the system reaches a tipping point. And then, what looks like a sudden breakthrough occurs. But it was never sudden. It was prepared. The universe doesn't leap. It accumulates. This applies not only to success, but to collapse. Burnout doesn't happen overnight. Neither does disconnection. Neither does loss of meaning. They are the result of small neglects repeated until the system can no longer compensate. Which means awareness, small, consistent awareness, is not trivial. It is corrective. A single moment of noticing interrupts momentum. A single adjustment creates a new trajectory. You don't need to see the entire future to influence it. You only need to change what you repeat next. Quantum physics reminds us that reality is not moved by force alone. It is shaped by direction, and direction is set not by dramatic acts, but by the smallest choices you continue to make when no one is watching. 7. The observer always matters. For most of history, science tried to remove the observer. To be objective meant to pretend the watcher didn't exist. That reality could be measured without being influenced. Quantum physics ended that illusion. Again and again, experiments revealed something impossible to ignore. The outcome depends on how the system is observed, not metaphorically, not emotionally, physically. When scientists measure a quantum system one way, it behaves like a particle. Measure it another way, and it behaves like a wave. The system does not decide in advance. It responds to the act of observation itself. This means the observer is not outside the experiment. The observer is part of it. Reality does not unfold independently and then get noticed. It unfolds with the noticing. This is where things become uncomfortable. Because if observation changes outcomes in physics, It cannot suddenly stop mattering at the scale of your life. We like to believe that events are neutral and fixed, and that our reactions come afterward. Quantum physics suggests the opposite. The way you approach a situation affects how it resolves. Expectation alters interaction. Assumption alters response. Attention alters outcome. You don't simply see reality, you participate in selecting it. Consider how differently the same situation unfolds, depending on who enters it. One person walks into a room expecting conflict, another expects understanding. They receive different conversations, different reactions, different realities, not because the world changed, but because the observer did. This is not about blame, it's about influence. The observer effect does not say you control everything. It says you are never irrelevant. Your presence shifts probabilities. Even silence is a form of observation. Even avoidance sends a signal. Quantum systems respond to measurement because measurement introduces relationship. Life responds to attention for the same reason. What you consistently notice grows more detailed. What you ignore fades into background noise. This is why fear sharpens threat. Why curiosity reveals opportunity. Why resentment sustains conflict. You are training reality through repetition of attention, and the most powerful observations are often unconscious. Your default expectations, your internal narratives, your quiet assumptions about how things usually go. These act like constant measurements. They collapse possibility into familiarity. Most people don't realize how much of their life is predictable, not because reality is rigid, but because observation has become habitual. The universe keeps responding in the same way, because it keeps being approached in the same way. Change doesn't begin with force. It begins with seeing differently. When you observe without immediately labeling, new options appear. When you pause before assuming, outcomes widen. When attention becomes flexible, reality follows. Quantum physics does not claim that consciousness magically creates matter. It claims something more precise and more unsettling. That interaction matters. That no observation is neutral. That participation is unavoidable. You are always inside the system you are trying to understand, which means your life is not a fixed script you're watching from the outside. It's a process you're influencing moment by moment through where you place your attention and how you interpret what you see. Once you truly understand this, you stop asking why reality keeps repeating itself, and you start asking a different question. What am I consistently observing that keeps calling the same outcomes back into existence? That question alone changes everything. With distance is an illusion. We instinctively trust distance. Near feels real, far feels abstract. What we can touch matters more than what we can't. Quantum physics undermines this instinct completely. There are particles that, once connected, never fully separate. No matter how far apart they travel, a change in one is reflected in the other instantly. Not delayed, not gradually, instantly. This connection does not travel through space. It does not weaken with distance. It simply exists. This phenomenon forces physics to confront something deeply unsettling. Space is not the barrier we think it is. At the most fundamental level, separation loses meaning. Two objects can behave as one system, even when the universe places galaxies between them. The implication is not mystical, it is structural. Reality is not built from isolated pieces interacting across empty space. It is built from relationships. The universe is not a collection of independent objects. It is a network, and in a network, distance is secondary to connection. This reframes how influence works. We assume impact requires proximity, that presence requires closeness, that separation means independence. Quantum physics suggests otherwise. Connection can be preserved without contact. Influence can exist without transmission. Relationship can outlast separation. This challenges how we understand loss. When something leaves your immediate experience, it does not vanish from the system. It changes form. It changes location. But the interaction that once existed does not simply dissolve. Memory is not just psychological, it is informational. The universe does not forget interactions easily. Every encounter leaves a trace. This is why moments can shape us permanently, why certain connections remain influential long after physical contact ends. Distance does not erase relationship. It only hides it from the senses. Quantum entanglement also challenges the idea of independence. If systems can remain linked across space, then complete autonomy is an illusion. Everything that has interacted carries some imprint of everything else. You are not a closed system. Your body is composed of atoms that have been part of countless other systems. Your mind is shaped by interactions you may no longer remember. Even your identity is relational. It emerges from contact, not isolation. This does not mean you lack individuality. It means individuality exists within connection, not outside it. Quantum physics does not say everything is the same. It says everything is related. This matters when we think about responsibility. If distance does not eliminate influence, then actions ripple further than we imagine. What you do does not end at your physical boundary. Tone, intention, and attention extend beyond immediate contact. This is why environments carry atmosphere, why places feel different, why presence can be felt before words are spoken. These are not mystical explanations. They are consequences of systems interacting and retaining traces of those interactions. The universe is less like a collection of rooms and more like a single space with shifting partitions. Walls appear solid, but information moves freely beneath them. When you understand this, isolation feels different. Loneliness is no longer proof of disconnection. It is a signal of unrecognized relationship. You are never as separate as you feel. You are embedded in a web of interactions that extend far beyond your awareness. Distance hides connection from perception, but it does not destroy it. And once you recognize that, the world feels less fragmented, less hostile, less indifferent, because reality was never built to keep things apart. It was built to keep them in relationship, even when space tries to convince you otherwise. 9. Chaos is not random. Chaos feels like failure. When patterns break, when plans collapse, when structure disappears, we assume something has gone wrong, that the system is malfunctioning. Quantum physics offers a more unsettling interpretation. At the deepest levels of reality, chaos is not the absence of order. It is the presence of an order we don't yet recognize. Quantum systems appear unpredictable, not because they lack rules, but because the rules operate beyond simple cause and effect. Outcomes emerge from interactions so sensitive that even the smallest variation produces a different result. This sensitivity creates the illusion of randomness. But illusion is the key word. Underneath chaos, structure remains. Probability still governs outcomes. Constraints still exist. Patterns still form, just not the ones we expect. This is why chaos often appears during transitions. When a system moves from one stable configuration to another, it must pass through instability. Order dissolves before it reorganizes. We resist this phase because it feels like loss of control, but control was never the same as stability. In quantum mechanics, particles do not move smoothly between states. They fluctuate, they jitter, they explore possibilities. This exploration looks chaotic from the outside. Internally, it is searching. The system is not breaking, it is testing. Life behaves the same way. Moments of confusion, upheaval, or contradiction are not signs of collapse. They are indicators that an old structure no longer fits. The mind wants resolution immediately. The universe does not rush. It allows disorder to do its work. Chaos breaks rigid patterns that would otherwise remain locked in place. It introduces variability into systems that have become too predictable. Without chaos, systems stagnate. Nothing new can emerge from perfect order. Every major transformation in nature, from the formation of galaxies to the evolution of species, required instability. Structure did not appear fully formed. It assembled through fluctuation. The same applies to personal change. When identities dissolve, routines fail, or certainty disappears, it feels like disintegration. But often, it is reorganization happening without your consent. Quantum physics suggests that systems reorganize from the inside out. They do not ask for comfort. They ask for conditions that allow new patterns to form. Chaos creates those conditions. This reframes crisis. A crisis is not just a breakdown. It is a state where multiple futures become possible at once. The system has not chosen yet. That uncertainty feels unbearable. But it is also where freedom enters. Randomness is frightening because it implies meaninglessness. Chaos is different. Chaos is full of information. It reveals which structures were dependent on force rather than coherence. What survives chaos was adaptable. What collapses was rigid. This is why chaos often strips away what was superficial and exposes what was essential. Not because the universe is cruel, because it is efficient. It does not preserve structures that no longer serve movement. Understanding this changes how you meet disorder. Instead of immediately trying to restore control, you can observe what is actually happening, which patterns are dissolving, which behaviors no longer work, which assumptions are being challenged. Chaos is not asking you to panic, it is asking you to update. The most dangerous response to chaos is attempting to freeze the system in a previous state. That creates resistance, and resistance amplifies instability. Quantum systems stabilize not by force, but by finding a new configuration that fits the conditions. When enough elements align, order returns, but it is never the same order as before. Something has been learned, something has been shed. Chaos does not erase meaning, it rearranges it, and those who can remain present within it, without rushing to impose false order, often discover that what emerges is not destruction, but a structure strong enough to hold more complexity than the last one ever could. 10. Reality is probabilities, not certainties. We are raised to believe that the world runs on solid facts, that things either happen or they don't, that outcomes are decided, that reality is firm, settled, and already written. Quantum physics quietly dismantles this assumption. At the deepest level, the universe does not deal in certainties. It deals in probabilities. A particle does not have a single future path. It has many, not metaphorically, mathematically. Each possible outcome exists as a probability, weighted by conditions, interactions, and constraints. Reality does not select one outcome until interaction forces a decision. Before that moment, nothing is guaranteed. This means the universe is not a machine executing a script. It is a system continuously calculating likelihoods. Every moment is a negotiation between what is possible and what becomes actual. This is uncomfortable because certainty feels safe. Certainty gives us the illusion of control, but certainty also closes doors. Probability keeps them open. In quantum mechanics, outcomes are never fully independent of context. Change the conditions even slightly, and the probabilities shift. What was unlikely becomes likely. What was dominant fades. Nothing collapses into reality by accident. It does so because conditions made it more probable than the alternatives. Now, bring this understanding closer to your own life. Most people live as if outcomes are fixed. They assume certain things always happen to them, that some results are inevitable, that change is rare and difficult. But what they are actually experiencing is a stable probability pattern. Repeated inputs produce repeated outcomes, not because reality is rigid, but because the conditions have remained unchanged. Beliefs act as conditions. Habits act as condition. Expectations act as conditions. They quietly bias probability. The universe does not reward hope or punish doubt. It responds to consistency. What you reinforce becomes statistically favored. This is why sudden transformation feels so rare. Not because it is impossible, but because probability resists abrupt shifts. Quantum systems do not jump randomly. They transition when enough conditions support a new outcome. This reframes failure. When something does not happen, it does not mean it was forbidden. It means the probability was not yet strong enough. And probabilities can be strengthened, not through force, but through alignment. Each repeated action, thought, or decision adds weight to certain futures and removes weight from others. You are not waiting for fate. You are participating in statistical influence. This is subtle, which is why it's powerful. Dramatic effort fades quickly. Consistent input compounds. Over time, probability bends. What once felt unreachable begins to feel natural. What once felt inevitable loses momentum. Quantum physics shows us that certainty is not the foundation of reality. Flexibility is. Nothing is locked until it is reinforced enough times to appear permanent. And even then, permanence is conditional. The universe is always recalculating. This is why awareness matters more than intensity. You don't need to control every outcome. You need to notice which probabilities you are feeding. Fear narrows probability. Curiosity expands it. Rigid identity collapses futures. Adaptability multiplies them. Reality is not asking you to predict the future. It is asking you to influence it by changing what you repeatedly bring into the present. Once you understand that life is not a sequence of certainties, but a field of shifting likelihoods, you stop asking, "Will this ever change?" And you start asking something far more powerful. What am I making more probable by the way I live right now? That question alone moves you from waiting for reality to actively shaping which version of it becomes real. 11. You are always co-creating. Most people believe life is something that happens to them. Events arrive, circumstances appear, and they respond afterward. This belief feels natural because it removes responsibility. If reality is external and fixed, then participation is optional. Quantum physics disagrees. At the most fundamental level, reality is not produced in isolation. It emerges through interaction. Nothing exists entirely on its own. Particles do not evolve independently. They respond to fields, boundaries, measurements, and relationships. Reality forms through exchange. This means creation is not a solo act. It is collaborative. You are not standing outside the universe, waiting for outcomes to be delivered. You are inside a system that is constantly responding to how you engage with it. Every moment is feedback. Your thoughts are not just internal commentary. They influence perception. Perception influences behavior. Behavior alters conditions. Those altered conditions feed back into what becomes possible next. This loop never stops. Even doing nothing is a form of participation. Silence reinforces certain patterns. Avoidance stabilizes existing probabilities. There is no neutral position. You are always contributing something to the system. Attention, expectation, resistance, curiosity, and the system responds. This is where co-creation is often misunderstood. It does not mean you control everything. Quantum physics does not promise unlimited power. It reveals continuous influence. You do not decide outcomes alone, but you do affect which outcomes are more likely. Reality is shaped by many interacting factors, and you are one of them. A meaningful one. This reframes effort. You don't need to force results into existence. You need to participate consciously. Small shifts in engagement change how the system responds. A question opens possibilities that certainty closes. Presence alters dynamics that avoidance freezes. When you show up differently, reality reorganizes. Most people underestimate this because the feedback is delayed. Cause and effect are not always immediate. Quantum systems can carry influence forward invisibly until conditions are right for expression. This makes co-creation easy to miss. You plant inputs now that only reveal their effects later, but the delay does not erase the relationship. It hides it. This is why reflection is powerful. Looking back, patterns become obvious. Certain choices consistently led to expansion. Others quietly narrowed options. Not because fate intervened, but because participation did. Life did not respond randomly. It responded proportionally. Understanding co-creation changes how you approach responsibility. Responsibility stops meaning blame. It starts meaning responsiveness. You are not responsible for everything that happens, but you are responsible for how you engage with what happens. That engagement becomes part of the equation. Quantum physics shows that systems evolve through interaction, not isolation. Growth does not occur by standing apart. It occurs by entering the process. This also changes how you relate to others. No interaction is one-sided. Energy, information, and influence move both ways. You affect people, even when you think you are just reacting to them. Co-creation is mutual, and because it is mutual, it is continuous. There is no final moment where creation ends and maintenance begins. Reality is always under construction. This can feel overwhelming at first, but it can also be grounding. You are not waiting for permission to matter. You already do. You are not stuck watching a world you can't touch. You are already touching it. Through attention, through choice, through response. Once you understand that you are always co-creating, passivity loses its appeal. So does panic. You don't need to rush the future. You need to participate in the present with awareness. Because whatever you bring into this moment, clarity or confusion, intention or avoidance, does not disappear. It becomes part of what reality has to work with next. And that means your life is not something happening without you. It is something unfolding with you, every step of the way. 12. You are not here by accident. We use the word random to make existence feel manageable. If everything is random, then nothing asks anything of us. No meaning, no responsibility, no reason to pay attention. Quantum physics does not support that comfort. At the deepest levels of reality, randomness is constrained. Possibilities exist, but not all possibilities. The universe operates within precise boundaries, values so exact that even a small deviation would make existence impossible. The strength of fundamental forces, the mass of particles, the balance between expansion and collapse. These are not vague ranges. They are narrow, improbably narrow. If they were slightly different, stars would not form, chemistry would fail, time itself might not unfold. Yet here you are, conscious, aware, observing. This is not proof of destiny. It is evidence of extreme selectivity. Existence did not casually allow awareness. It required conditions fine-tuned enough to support complexity, memory, and reflection. You are the outcome of an unimaginably long chain of conditions, aligning, not once, continuously. Every generation that survived, every mutation that worked, every moment where extinction did not win. Your presence is the result of persistence across chaos. This reframes chance. Chance did not place you here. Constraint did. Reality filtered relentlessly, and awareness emerged anyway. Quantum physics shows that systems capable of observation are rare. Most of the universe is silent. No perception, no meaning, no experience. And yet, in some regions, matter organized itself in a way that could look back at itself. That is not an accident. It is a threshold being crossed. You are not outside this process. You are the process noticing itself. This is why observation matters so much. The universe does not merely exist. It is being experienced, and experience changes the system. You are not a spectator in a meaningless cosmos. You are one of the ways the cosmos becomes meaningful. This does not imply a pre-written purpose. It implies participation. Meaning is not assigned from above. It is generated through interaction, through attention, through choice. Quantum physics does not say you were meant to be here in a narrative sense. It says something far more demanding, that your existence is statistically extraordinary, and extraordinary things ask for engagement, not obligation. Engagement. You don't need to justify your existence, but you are invited to respond to it. Most people drift through life as if awareness were disposable, as if attention were cheap. Quantum reality suggests the opposite. Observation is rare. Consciousness is rare. Experience is rare. And you are in the middle of it. Not as a visitor, as an expression. This changes how absence feels. When things end, it is not because meaning failed, it is because process is completed. This changes how fear feels. You are not fragile in a careless universe. You are precise in a selective one. Not guaranteed, but not accidental. Your thoughts matter because they are events in a system that responds. Your choices matter because they shape probability paths. Your awareness matters because without it, this version of reality would not exist at all. The universe does not need you to believe in meaning. It has already demonstrated that meaning can arise through you. Once you understand that you are not here by accident, life stops feeling like something you need to outrun or prove. It starts feeling like something you are allowed to participate in fully. Not because you were promised anything, but because you already exist in a reality that worked incredibly hard to make that possible. If you've made it this far, pause for a moment. Not because the video is ending, but because something has already shifted. You've just looked at reality differently. And once awareness changes, the system changes with it. Quantum physics doesn't give comfort. It gives responsibility. Not the heavy kind, the quiet kind. The kind that reminds you that attention matters, that participation is unavoidable, that you are not separate from what unfolds next. Nothing you heard here requires belief. It only requires noticing how observation shapes experience, how small changes accumulate, how uncertainty opens more doors than certainty ever could. This isn't about controlling the universe. It's about recognizing that you are already part of it. So when this video ends, nothing magical needs to happen. Just pay attention to what you notice next. Because whatever you observe, whatever you reinforce, whatever you choose to engage with, doesn't disappear. It becomes part of the reality that responds to you. And once you understand that, you don't need the universe to change. You only need to notice that it already is.